after the fall of Babylon, the Medes and Persians took control of the provinces of the former Babylonian Empire. Darius the Mede ruled over the province of Babylon, and Cyrus the Persian ruled over the entire empire. In the first year, the same year of Daniel's third vision, Cyrus decreed that a temple for the God of Judah be built in Jerusalem. It seems like everything is going well for the Jewish people. Cyrus allowed the Jews to return to Judah and Jerusalem. However, as we continue in Daniel, we read that just 2 years later, Daniel is in mourning. Daniel 10:1 and 2. In the third year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a message was revealed to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar. The message was true, but the appointed time was long, and he understood the message and had understanding of the vision. In those days I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks. What had happened to cause Daniel to mourn? What would he learn in his fourth and final vision about both the near future and the distant future? I'm Brenda Cathcart, and this is the Voice of the Prophets. The Jewish people received Cyrus's decree that he was building a temple for Yahovah in Jerusalem with joy. They quickly put together an expedition back to Judah. The number of Jews who joined this first expedition was 42,360 people. By the time the 7th month of that year came around, they had the altar ready to accept their offerings. Everything was off to an excellent start. They began work on the temple in the 2nd month of the 2nd year they were in the land. Ezra 3:8. Now in the 2nd month of the 2nd year of their coming to the house of God at Jerusalem, Zerubbabel the son of Shealtiel, Yeshua the son of Jehozadak, and the rest of their brethren, the priests and the Levites, and all those who had come out of the captivity to Jerusalem, began work and appointed the Levites from 20 years old and above to oversee the work of the house of the Lord. At this time, the Samaritans who lived in the land objected to the work on the temple and sent accusations to Cyrus that the Jews planned to revolt. Cyrus responded to the accusations by ordering that work on the temple be suspended. Ezra 4:21. Now give the command to make these men cease, that this city may not be built until the command is given by me. In the 1st month of the 3rd year of Cyrus's reign, Daniel was in mourning, very likely because the work on the temple had been ordered to stop. The joy and excitement of being able to rebuild the house of God had just turned to days of sadness and mourning. Daniel 10:3 and 4. I ate no pleasant food, no meat or wine came into my mouth, nor did I anoint myself at all, till 3 whole weeks were fulfilled. Now on the 24th day of the 1st month, as I was by the side of the great river, that is the Tigris. The 1st month of the year on the ancient Babylonian and Persian calendars was the month of Nisan in the spring. On the Hebrew calendar, this month was also known as the month of Abib, which God declared to Moses would be counted as the 1st month. Daniel's fast would have started on the 3rd day of the month to culminate on the 24th. The days of his fast would have encompassed the feast of Passover and unleavened bread. In the days leading up to Passover, all leaven or chametz is cleaned out of the household. Symbolically, it represents the removal of pride and all that lifts itself above God. Since all families of Israel need to bring a sacrifice lamb at Passover, everyone needs to be cleansed from any taint of death. This is the time that would see the greatest application of the ashes of the red heifer for the purification of touching a dead body. The Passover itself celebrated the exodus of the children of Israel from slavery in Egypt. The hopes that the slavery and servitude of the children of Israel in Babylon was at an end were dashed when Cyrus suspended permission to rebuild the temple. On the 24th day of the 1st month, 3 days after the end of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, Daniel was out by the Tigris River. While there, a man appeared to him in a vision. Daniel 10:5 and 6. I lifted my eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose waist was girded with gold of Uphaz. His body was like beryl, his face like the appearance of lightning, his eyes like torches of fire, his arms and feet like burnished bronze in color, and the sound of his words like the voice of a multitude. The description of this man is very similar to Ezekiel's description of the glory of God in Ezekiel chapter 1. This man was very likely to have been a manifestation of the Word of God, which we understand as a pre-incarnate appearance of Yeshua. None of Daniel's companions saw the vision, but they were filled with terror and ran away to hide. Daniel was overcome with weakness and tiredness. He fell to the ground in a deep sleep. Daniel 10:8 and 9. Therefore I was left alone when I saw this great vision, and no strength remained in me, for my vigor was turned to frailty in me, and I retained no strength. Yet I heard the sound of his words, and while I heard the sound of his words, I was in a deep sleep on my face, with my face to the ground. This is the second time that Daniel was in a deep sleep when he saw a vision. The first time was in the 3rd year of Belteshazzar's reign, when in Daniel's vision a man instructed the angel Gabriel to explain the vision of the ram and goat to Daniel. The vision in this chapter is in the 3rd year of the reign of Cyrus. Like the vision of the ram and goat, this vision is also about the Persian and Greek empires. The narrative continues in parallel with the narrative of Daniel's earlier vision. As Daniel lies face down in a deep sleep, a hand touches him and sets him upright. Daniel 10:10 and 11. Suddenly a hand touched me, which made me tremble on my knees and on the palms of my hands. And he said to me, O Daniel, man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak to you and stand upright, for I have now been sent to you. While he was speaking this word to me, I stood trembling. The touch of the angel strengthened Daniel enough to be able to stand, but he was still weak and trembling. As we continue, Daniel confesses he is too weak to speak, and the angel again touches Daniel to strengthen him. Daniel then is able to speak and reveal the cause of his weakness. Daniel 10:16 and 17. And suddenly one having the likeness of the sons of men touched my lips. Then I opened my mouth and spoke, saying to him who stood before me, My Lord, because of the vision, my sorrows have overwhelmed me, and I have retained no strength. For how can the servant of my Lord talk with you, my Lord? As for me, no strength remains in me now, nor is any breath left in me. The cause of Daniel's weakness is his response to the future for Israel that he saw in the vision. Again, this parallels his response to the vision of the ram and goat. The angel responds to Daniel's confession of weakness with another touch, and finally, Daniel is strengthened to hear the words of explanation of the vision. Daniel 10:18 and 19. Then again, the one having the likeness of a man touched me and strengthened me. And he said, O man greatly beloved, fear not. Peace be to you. Be strong. Yes, be strong. So when he spoke to me, I was strengthened and said, Let my Lord speak, for you have strengthened me. How horrible must the vision have been for Daniel to be so weak with sorrow. The first thing that is revealed is that the angel is engaged in a fierce spiritual battle. The angel was sent to Daniel when he first began to fast and pray, but he was held up by the prince of Persia. Daniel 10:13. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days, and behold, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, for I had been left alone there with the kings of Persia. The angel states that after he delivers the message to Daniel, he will return to the battle in which he will be fighting first against Persia and then against the powers of Greece. Daniel 10:20 through 11:1. Then he said, Do you know why I have come to you? And now I must return to fight with the prince of Persia. And when I have gone forth, indeed the prince of Greece will come. But I will tell you what is noted in the scripture of truth. No one upholds me against these except Michael, your prince. Also in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I, stood up to confirm and strengthen him. This angel works together with Michael, who is the angel over the Jewish people. 2 years earlier, in the province of Babylon, which was ruled by Darius the Mede, the angel assisted Michael. Here, as the angel was blocked from coming to Daniel, he is assisted by Michael. The message the angel brought was about the fall of the Persian Empire and the rise of the Greek Empire. Daniel 11:2. And now I will tell you the truth. Behold, 3 more kings will arise in Persia. The 4th shall be far richer than them all. By his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Greece. According to the Jewish understanding of this verse, the Persian Empire would fall after the 4th ruler referred to in this verse. The Stone Edition Tanakh provides the explanation of the sage Rashi. The 3 kings after Darius the Mede were Cyrus, Ahasuerus, and Darius the Persian. The latter would be the 4th Median Persian king. The secular historians explain that the 4th ruler is Artaxerxes, who was the wealthiest king due to his policies of continued expansion and high taxes. In this view, Artaxerxes was not the last king. He was merely the one who stirred up the Greeks with his plans to expand into the West. These differing views give rise to the significant difference in opinion of how long the Persian Empire lasted. According to Rashi, it lasted only 53 years. According to secular historians, it lasted 208 years. The length of the Persian Empire and the events that happened during this period of time are not the focus of the angel's message, however. Instead, the Persian Empire is glossed over just like it was in Daniel's earlier version of the ram and goat. The real message is about the Greek Empire and the 4 kings who rise from it. Daniel 11:3 and 4. Then a mighty king shall arise, who shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. And when he has arisen, his kingdom shall be broken up and divided toward the 4 winds of heaven, but not among his posterity, nor according to his dominion with which he ruled. For his kingdom shall be uprooted even for others besides these. Alexander the Great is the mighty king of Greece. At his death in 323 BCE, his 4 generals, Ptolemy, Cassander, Seleucus, and Lysimachus, divided the kingdom and each ruled over a portion of the empire. Of these 4 generals, Ptolemy and Seleucus claimed the larger portions. War broke out between these generals and other leaders of the Greek army, the chief of which was Antigenes. Antigenes pushed Lysimachus into the northwest and was in turn absorbed by Seleucus. Cassander occupied the western part of the Greek peninsula. By far the largest 2 regions were the Ptolemaic to the south and the Seleucid to the north. These are also the 2 kingdoms that have control over Israel. Remember, prophecy always centers on Israel and on the nations that affect Israel. These 2 kings and the kingdoms they founded are the focus of the rest of Daniel's vision. Daniel 11:5. Also the kings of the south shall become strong, as well as one of his princes, and he shall gain power over him and have dominion. His dominion shall be a great dominion. The first king mentioned is the king of the south, which refers to the kingdom established by General Ptolemy. He ruled over Egypt, North Africa, Israel, the nations surrounding Israel, and up into Asia Minor. Notice that Israel was originally in the region controlled by Ptolemy. Under Ptolemaic rule, Israel was allowed and even encouraged to worship God. The Ptolemies collected the writings, histories, and philosophies of all the peoples included in the empire, as well as any that they encountered as they traded around the world. These writings were collected in the great library at Alexandria. The curators of this library are the ones who commissioned the translation of the Hebrew Scriptures into Greek. We know this translation as the Septuagint. The king of the north refers to the kingdom established by General Seleucus. While the Ptolemies were renowned for their collection of knowledge, the Seleucids were known for their fierce armies and the forced absorption of other cultures into the Greek culture and gods. They expanded in all directions, but were stymied when they tried to expand southward into the region controlled by the Ptolemies. The king of the south offers a peace treaty sealed by the marriage of a daughter of Ptolemy to a son of Seleucus. Daniel 11:6. And at the end of some years they shall join forces, for the daughter of the king of the south shall go to the king of the north to make an agreement, but she shall not retain the power of her authority, and neither he nor his authority shall stand, but she shall be given up with those who brought her, and with him who begot her, and with him who strengthened her in those times. The NKJV Study Bible identifies this daughter as Berenice, daughter of Ptolemy Philadelphus, and the king she marries as Antiochus II Theos. This peace was breached in the next generation by Ptolemy III, the brother of Berenice, who is described as a branch from her roots. Daniel 11:7 and 8. But from a branch of her roots one shall arise in his place, who shall come with an army, enter the fortress of the king of the north, and deal with them and prevail. And he shall also carry their gods captive to Egypt, with their princes and their precious articles of silver and gold, and he shall continue more years than the king of the north. Ptolemy III outlived Seleucus Callinicus, the king of the north that he had defeated by several years. The war between the Ptolemies and the Seleucids continues off and on for 125 years until the year 198 BCE, when the Seleucids under Antiochus III gained control of Israel. Many of the Jews conspired with the Seleucids to bring this about. Daniel 11:14 through 16. Now in those times many shall rise up against the king of the south. Also violent men of your people shall exalt themselves in fulfillment of the vision, but they shall fall. So the king of the north shall come and build a siege mount and take a fortified city, and the forces of the south shall not withstand him. Even his choice troops shall have no strength to resist. But he who comes against him shall do according to his own will, and no one shall stand against him. He shall stand in the glorious land with destruction in his power. The angel indicates that this will be the start of terrible times for Judah and Israel. The language he uses contrasts Israel as the glorious land with the absolute power this kingdom has over Israel. He has the power to destroy Israel, Jerusalem, and the temple that in the time of Daniel had not even been rebuilt. Antiochus III is known as the Great. Under his reign, the Seleucid Empire pushed the Ptolemies out of Asia Minor, conquered Parthia to the east, and took on Rome to the west. He was killed as he was looting a temple in Elam. An article about the reign of Antiochus III the Great summarizes his achievements, his failures, and how his failures set up the ultimate fall of the Seleucid Empire. Antiochus III the Great had managed to become the king who had at the same time both restored the glory of the Seleucid Empire and signed its doom. Against all odds, he had managed to fight against a series of civil wars, launch a campaign to India and back, conquer Coel, Syria, Asia Minor, and Thrace, take Hannibal into his court, and worry the Romans. But in the end, when he fought against Rome, it became apparent that even he did not have the wit or the power to bring down the military machine that would dominate the ancient world for centuries to come. After the death of Antiochus III the Great, his son Seleucus IV Philopator took the throne and ruled for a brief 11 years, Daniel 11:20. There shall arise in his place one who imposes taxes on the glorious kingdom, but within a few days he shall be destroyed, but not in anger or in battle. Scripture only mentions him in passing because his rule had little impact on Israel. However, his brother Antiochus Epiphanes IV had a great impact on Israel and writes several verses describing his reign. In the short term, Daniel saw that the temple of God would not be rebuilt soon. It would not be the beginning of a new Exodus and the reestablishment of an independent kingdom of Israel. In the long term, Daniel saw continued Gentile domination and control of Israel. As we continue with studying Daniel's fourth vision in our next teaching, we will examine the reign of the king who had the power to destroy the glorious land of Israel. I'm Brenda Cathcart for Moed Ministries International. Shalom and be blessed.